Hello YouTube and everyone in cyberspace. Welcome to another edition of T's Corner. Um, the lady who has an opinion about everything. And I'm going to be reviewing Greenleaf Season 1 Episode 2, The Baptism. Now, if you saw my review of Season 1 Episode 1, A Time to Heal, then you know I recorded it today and I'm still wearing my It's Not Easy Being Moody shirt. I did, however, put the fro in some cornrows, so I have done something since the last video. Make it look a little different. I don't know, I might put some glasses on for episode 3, because like I said, I'll probably do them all today, so I'm going to have the same clothes on. And I'm not coming from my corner on my couch, which is my favorite spot. I'm coming from my bed, which is my second favorite spot. So it's not really a corner, but we'll pretend. So, before I jump into episode 2, I missed some things in episode 1. And I'm like, how did I miss some things in episode 1? It was 35 minutes that I was talking to you guys. But I missed some things in episode 1. First of all, I forgot to tell you that the sexy, debonair, curly hair, salt and pepper head of security Noah is portrayed by actor Benjamin Patterson. And we find that, you know, he's Gigi's old flame from before she left, and they were serious and in love and talking about getting married, and then she left. Another thing that I missed was to end the episode. Bishop Greenleaf preached a sermon on coming back to your best friend and coming home. And I actually like the sermon. Now, I've heard, you know, other reviews and some people critique the show. There was no biblical, you know, referral. There was no scripture or no testimony that this was taken from. It was just an anecdote, a story, but I thought it was pretty important. He was talking about how you have this good friend that you meet, and you know you're different, but you find out you have a lot of things in common. And throughout the years, you know, you're good friends and you're inseparable, and then life separates you, but you keep in touch through emails and things like that. And at the end of every email, you say, I miss you, come home. So finally, this friend that you haven't seen in years, but that you've kept in touch with through technology, is coming home. And you know, when you get back together, it's like old times and you're happy to see each other. And, you know, it's like that time hasn't passed. And the anecdote that he used it to bring it home into the sermon and the biblical context was that God is that friend. And that no matter how much time passes, he's there with open arms, welcoming you back and to come back. And this sermon, you know, it really touched Gigi. And so she gets emotional and she's crying, and her daughter Sophia sitting there like, you know, something's working here. And Gigi goes to altar call, I guess you would call it, and I guess rededicates at that point. And I personally believe that it really touched her, because while Gigi only came home to bury her sister and pay her respects, you have to understand that this is a woman who has been away from her family for 20 years. And at this point, I don't know what happened with her baby daddy, but her only family is her and Sophia. And so she has this huge family in Memphis, Tennessee that she hasn't seen in 20 years. Because she's moved to Arizona and separated herself from her family. And I guess that would be kind of hard, because no matter what went down with your family that would cause that rift, that would cause the breakaway and for her to leave, you know, there is still aspects of her family that she misses, you know. And I'm sure, just like within any family, they had their hard times and things were not great, but there is never anything that is all bad all the time. And so she's missing her family, and she's missing her relationship with them as well as with Christ, because she has already said at the dinner table that she's pretty much become a Christmas Easter Christian. and just working on her relationship with trying to be a part of God. And so her father comes over, and I don't know if that's more daddy or if it's bishop. I'm not really sure which role he's in when he comes over, but he just welcomes her back and he's praying with her and he's talking to her. And then Uncle Mac, and I don't know what Uncle Mac's job is at the church yet. I have not figured out what this bastard does, but it seemed like he a deacon or something. Because during the altar call, when people are coming down, he is actually down at the altar when the people are coming down and greeting them and talking to people. So I'm assuming he's a deacon or something. He's the devil, but you know, he has a title. Lucifer, deacon, same thing. And I'm not saying deacons are Lucifer. I'm saying Uncle Mac is the devil. That's what I'm saying. So I don't want no deacons to get upset and be like, you hear what she said? No, I love my deacons in my church. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about Uncle Mac McCready specifically. And so he calls the bishop over to a couple who had come down. Now, I think they were already members of the church. I think they were, you know, but then they hit the Powerball. And, you know, had me wishing I was them, but they hit the Powerball. And they came down. And I don't know what they came down for, because hitting the Powerball is not an altar call moment, and donating 50 grand to the church is not an altar call moment. Okay, first of all, you're supposed to do that stuff in private and not for attention, but I digress. So Uncle Mac the devil calls over Bishop Greenleaf to this couple, and he announces, you know, they could have went anywhere and blew that money and been doing this, that, and the other, but they came to church like regular folk, and they didn't put 50 grand in the offering. Praise God. And immediately me and Grace are taken aback by this, because I don't ever like that in TV, in real church. I don't like that. I don't like people who have to be put on display for what they do for the approval of people, when what you do is supposed to be for the uplifting of God and his approval, and that does not have to be made public. So I felt some type of way about it, and the way she looked at the devil, she felt some type of way about it too. And it's like the devil, it seemed like he liked to push her buttons. He likes to know that she absolutely hates and abhors him, and he relishes in it. So he's looking at her dirty, she's looking at him dirty. And hold on, because my son's about to bust in here and mess this up.
Hi, everybody.
That's my son, and now he's getting ready to leave.
No.
Pardon the interruption. That's Mama's baby. That's my joy. And he has to be a part of everything I do, which is good, because after a while I'll not be cool and he'll not want to hang with me. But I digress. So, now we'll jump right into episode 2, the baptism. So we don't know how much time has elapsed between episode 1 and episode 2. But when we start episode 2, Gigi is at Auntie M's with Aunt Mavis, and they're talking, and she has the police report of the 15-year-old church member who had accused Uncle Mac of rape. And she got this from a police officer who I guess frequents Auntie M's. And she had all of the police report documentation, the pictures, the video of the confession, and the recant. And she gave these things to Gigi, telling her, you know, that she was the one who could right this ship. And Gigi's like, and he just gave this to you. And Mavis replied, he is a she, and she gets it. And that's always the case. And when I say always the case, I don't mean that all women understand, because there are some that are just, they blatantly don't want to understand what this epidemic is, or they want to sweep it under the rug, or if it doesn't touch them, they don't want it to. And that's just people in general. But when I say that's always the case, it's because she says she gets it. And I would have liked when Gigi said, and he just gave it to you. It was a he, and he did get it, and he did understand what it's like for that young girl to be violated like that, and for Uncle Mac to get away scot-free, because a lot of times men don't get it, and then when they do, again, it's far removed from me, and I want it to stay that way. So I was just hoping that the writers did something abnormal there, and they didn't, and that doesn't take away from the storyline. That was just a personal wish I had that didn't come true. But after Aunt Mavis gives Gigi this information, she reviews it, and she listens to the girl's confession, and she goes into detail. And I will say, I have a heart for the victim. I do. I really do. I have been blessed beyond blessed to have a mother who protected me and shielded me from monsters that we know as humans, that we know as family, as friends, as people in the church. Because what people really need to understand is that monsters are not the things that go boo in the night. People are. And it's the people that you least expect. And the unfortunate truth is that familial incest and rape and molestation has been a generational curse in my own family. And so I do have a heart for the victim of these things, because I have a passion for bringing it out. We, especially in the African American community, grow up with that what goes on in this house stays in this house rule. And for some things, that's okay to apply. For child molestation, rape, and incest, it is not. It is not okay. Somebody needs to talk about it, and these people need to be brought to justice. And I don't mean 15, 20, 30 years later when we're in counseling dealing with the repercussions of what uncle did to me and what auntie did to me and what mama's boyfriend and the babysitter, blah, blah, blah. No. It needs to be dealt with immediately, because as we see through the character Faith Greenleaf, it has lasting implications. There are lasting responses to that cause of action, which is to be raped. And then you have to deal with that. And 9 times out of 10, you have to deal with it in silence, and you have to deal with it by yourself. And the offender is quick to say, I am who I am, and nobody will believe you. And a lot of children believe that, and a lot of children fear it, especially if you are a child or a young person, and this is an adult, an adult that you're taught to respect, or family member, somebody you don't want to cause problems. You don't want to rock the boat in any way. You don't want to be the person responsible for making anything bad, so you suffer in silence by yourself, and that thing eats you up, and it manifests itself in other ways. And then you see these people who are promiscuous, or you see people who turn to drugs and alcohol. You see people who are so closed in and hateful and just, can't love and can't be loved because of this thing that was done to them that they had no control over, that was not their fault, and they believe it was their fault. And so I'm just applauding this show for dealing with it, and for the character Grace to be that person that says it's not okay, and I'm saying something about it, and I'm not letting it go. And if none of you want to face the reality of what this situation is, then I don't want to be anywhere near you. And then I'm leaving. And she leaves for 20 years because it's like, I can't do this by myself without any familial support, and I don't have any support from you guys. And this creep raped my sister, and she's afraid, and so she's recanted, and the people who are supposed to protect her are not doing so. And then when she comes back 20 years later, it's to bring to light this injustice that was done to her sister, and that has ultimately caused her death. And I watched, I have the Watch Own app on my phone, so I've watched all the episodes. Well, I watched them on TV too, but I watched all the episodes, and I watched the behind the scenes and the this, that, and the other. And in the introduction, the character sketch of Grace Greenleaf, she says she comes back for her sister's funeral and to determine whether her death was suicide or homicide. And so even 8 episodes in, I'm still waiting to find out if Uncle Mac killed that girl or had her killed, or did she really kill herself because it was just too much and she couldn't take it anymore. So there, got that out. Now I forgot exactly what I was talking about. I done went off on a whole nother tangent. But so yeah, Auntie Mavis gives Gigi the file, and Gigi goes back and she reviews it, and she reads the confession. And the young girl Danielle, who's 15 and was raped repeatedly by Uncle Mac, gives a description of how he took her to the church camp for fishing, and then he's supposed to be teaching her how to fish, and he ends up raping her, pretty much. Says he takes the fishing rod, starts to kiss her rough. She's like, back up, stop. He doesn't. He continues to force himself upon her, putting his hands in his pants. And then that pretty much ends the descriptive detail of what she gives you. But, we don't need a very vivid imagination to know what comes next. And 3 days later, she recants, and no one knows why. So, meanwhile, Grace, like I said, we don't know how much time has elapsed. So Grace has decided to stay in Memphis instead of taking the job with 20/20 in New York. And Sophia is not very happy about that. And so I'm gathering from conversation, because this is not something that you see, that she's talked to her dad about it. And so on the way to school, she tells Grace that her dad will probably be calling to find out why they're in Memphis and not in New York, and why is she working at the church instead of taking the job at 20/20. And she's like, okay, well, I'll talk to him. And so we find that Sophia, like most young children, and I won't say girls, although it's mostly girls, it's usually vocalized by girls, but I will say boys go through the same things. She's feeling a little insecure about her body, and she says she doesn't like her legs, and she's in her school uniform. And so Grace is telling, your legs are beautiful, you're fine, go to school, have a great day. And she's attending Black Excellence, which is, I guess, a charter private school. I don't know how that works. But Messy Carissa is the principal of Black Excellence, and now Sophia will be attending Black Excellence. And so she's there, and she's with her cousin Zora, and the math teacher is giving her English homework, and she's like, what the hell? And she meets her cousin Zora's friends, and they're, loud and obnoxious like teenage girls can be, and I swear I don't remember being that way, but all of them I see are like that now. I don't remember that being me, but I'm sure it was. And they're talking about some girl turned up at the party and she was TT and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And a term I had not heard before the show either. But she didn't know what they meant. And she was like, well, what does that mean? And so they explained it to her. And she's like, oh, okay, but not really understanding. And later on in the episode, she goes on to tell her mother that I have gone from being the only black girl in an all-white school to being the only white girl in an all-black school. And that is hard for kids. And we have to think, decisions that adults make, which are for the best for the family or for the kids don't always understand, and they have to process it, and they have to go through it in their own way. So she's moving from Arizona, anticipating going to New York, taking a detour to bury her aunt and meet her family, and ends up living there in the familiar house with the entire family, and having not really been raised in a religiously structured household. Now you live with the bishop and the first lady, and every fiber of their being revolves around church and family. So this is a new atmosphere for her, and now I'm going to a new school, and it's totally different from what I was used to before, and now I have to adjust to this like I adjusted to that. And parents don't always think about that. And the tiny little boy who came in and said hi to everyone is going to experience that this year, and I just pray that I have made the right decision, because he is going from public school to private school, and he'll be a minority definitely in that atmosphere. So pray for me, pray for him. Let's hope we made the right decision for him when making decisions for him and not consulting him, because I can't consult him, he's 7. But anyway, Isabel is a teacher at Black Excellence. So Messy Carissa is her boss. And apparently they're at a school called Black Excellence, and they are not meeting the state requirement for the standardized testing. And I hate standardized testing. It's not really teaching. The kids don't know anything when they're done, whether they pass them or not. But that is how you are graded as a teacher and as a school. That is how funds are dealt out and all this stuff. And I only know this because one of my best friends is a teacher, and also my cousin is also a teacher. But these standardized tests to me is not teaching kids. It's not learning these kids. It's not teaching the kids in the way that they learn. And yet this is the end all be all of how our schools are graded. And at Black Excellence, they're not doing so excellent. And so, because Messy Carissa is dealing with the fact that her husband is banging Alexa in the church closet, that happened in episode 1 too. The side piece is pastor's assistant, Alexa, aka Becky with the good hair, who Jacob is banging on Sunday morning. Jacob Lamont, both of you, in the closet at church. Come on, man. During Sunday service, she's supposed to be taking Pastor the Bible. That's probably why the sermon that Pastor had didn't have no scripture. Because Alexa had the Bible, and she is in the broom closet across from the sanctuary, getting her thing waxed by Jacob when they both should have been in the service. So, Messy Carissa is dealing with the fact that her husband blatantly cheats on her. And so she's feeling some type of way about that. And then she gets the reports and schools failing standardized practice test. And the actual standardized test is coming up. So she's come down hard on her staff. Like, y'all need to step your game up and get them where they need to be in order to pass these tests. Because we can't call ourselves Black Excellence if we're not black and excellent. Don't work that way. We have to be excellent on these standardized tests. And so, in trying to fulfill that request, Isabel is pretty much cheating, giving the kids the answers to the practice exam so they all come out with perfect scores. And Messy Carissa asks her how she did that, and then says, never mind, I don't want to know, just do it on the test. So, I won't say that Messy Carissa is insecure. She is messy because she don't handle things correctly. But she has reasons for her issues. And reason number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is her husband, Jacob. I guess we could say 6 is Alexa. Then we have, what's the girl's name? I just said it like 6 times. Isabel. Isabel is handsome security guard Noah's fiance. Isabel, I don't like either. And I know you're like, y'all, you don't like nobody on this show. I love this show, but Messy Carissa, like I said, she comes and goes with me, but Isabel is always going. I don't like her. She is Noah's fiance. She is well aware of the history between Noah and Gigi. And she's insecure about it. And I don't like that. Because my thing is, if she is in the past, then that's where you need to leave her. He is with you now. He is not giving you any indication that since Grace has come back, he's leaving. So be comfortable where you are. Instead, she's asking, what's she look like? Why? Why do you care? So he tells her, you know, she looked like Grace 20 years later. He ain't tell her she's still fine as hell, and, you know, that's probably what he was thinking. He didn't tell her. Because they're not going to tell you. I don't know why you asked. He's not going to tell you that he still finds her attractive. Because that's not going to make you feel comfortable, and that's going to put him in the doghouse. He's not going to be honest with you about the woman who came before you. And I'm sure in a 20-year span there was more than just you and Grace. But he's not going to tell you, so don't ask. It's stupid of you to ask anyway. Don't care. That's what you need to work on. Don't care. You're in your spot. Stay in your lane. She's the past. Let it stay there. Because when you start digging for stuff, you know what happens. You find it. So that's why I don't like Isabel. She's insecure. Just play your part. So, Grace goes to the young lady's house, Danielle, who was raped by Uncle Matt, aka the devil. And her mother comes to the door, and she's holding a baby, and we're going to assume this is Danielle's little brother. because there's never any clarification as to who this baby is. And she sends him into the house once Grace identifies herself and says why she's there. She sends the baby in the house and she's like, we don't go to Calvary no more. And Grace says, I know you don't, and I know why you don't. And the mother gonna try to play it off like she don't know what Grace talking about. Like, ain't nothing happened to Danielle, and I don't know why you here, and we don't go there no more, and leave my family alone, and blah, blah, blah. Which, first of all, the animosity in your voice already tell us you lying. But we ain't figured out why yet. Then, Uncle Devil gets a telephone call from Danielle's mother saying I had a visit from somebody at the church, and we had a deal. Which makes you be like, oh, you nasty so-and-so. Because there is nothing worse than a parent who knows in their heart and in their mind 100% knows that their child has been violated by a predator and will make a deal or sweep it under the rug instead of seeking justice for that child and being there for him. If you sweep it under the rug, you ain't shit. So that's how I feel about Danielle's mom. You ain't shit. Danielle's mom, because I don't even know your name. So, Uncle Devil says, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. It's handled. And I assume at this point he's going to go to Grace. But he doesn't. Uncle Devil, and I am tipping my arm. And yeah, I know I got this Ruby Tuesday baby cup with wine in it. God forgive me. So anyway, Uncle Devil, instead of going to Grace to confront her about approaching Danielle and her mother, he goes to visit his sister, the black sheep of the McCready family, Auntie Mavis, down at Auntie M's on Beale Street. Upon looking at him, Auntie like, get your ass out of here. What are you doing here? And he tries to intimidate her by saying that he's been meeting with the governor, and with all that is going on in the city and the racial tensions being high, the governor wants to look like he is on the side of the African American, and that Auntie M's used to be some sort of museum, or they want to make it a museum for some civil rights place that it used to be before she bought it. And of course she owns the land outright. She owns the bar outright. And so he's threatening her with eminent domain. For those of you who don't know what eminent domain is, I'm not going to tell you. Look it up, because I had to. Learned that in, what was it? Civics class, I think it was. That I had to know that. So, if you don't know what eminent domain is, look it up and then you'll understand why he's threatening her with it. Yes, homework from a YouTube video. Go figure. So, she's like, you're not going to win this time. You're not going to get away with it. And he's like, call Gigi off or I'm going to make things bad for you in your bar. And she's like, I'm not threatened by that. And you're not going to win. And then she goes on to say, I don't know why you're the way you are. I don't know if mama did something to you or daddy did something to you. Lord knows I've had my share of pain from them, which also lets you know that there are some deep, dark secrets in the McCready line, and we're assuming those will come out later. And she says, but the difference between you and I is I didn't go passing my pain along like it was some gift. And then she tells him it's one thing to be sick. It's another thing to go peacocking about it. Because in my Bible, stuff like that is reserved for Satan. But as I've already told you, Uncle Mac is the devil. That's why you can draw inferences to him and Satan, because he is the devil. And he is. He really does peacock about it. He really seems like he is proud that he is a baby rapist. Don't know how you could take any joy in that, but like so many other things that I don't understand, I said if I understood it, I could justify it, and I don't ever want to be able to justify rape or child molestation, so I don't want to understand. So I don't understand Uncle Mac. But he goes off smiling and laughing as if he's won something. Meanwhile, the senator, the senior senator of Tennessee is requesting financial documentation from the Calvary. And Bishop, like, I'm not giving him that. And Alexa's like, well, what do you want me to do? And he's like, do nothing. He's not getting that information. Why would I release that information to him? But then the thing that turns me off, and so many things about the church and religion turn me off, and the older I get and the more educated I get, don't get me wrong, I love God, I love Jesus for his sacrifice for me, and I have a relationship with God, and without it I don't know where I would be. But there are things about Christianity and religion in general that just don't sit right with me anymore once I learn and once I read for myself. And I think the most important thing I've ever learned in church is that, you know, old black folks say, mama can't do it for you, daddy, grandma, whatever. You have to come to God for you. You have to come for yourself. And you have to know him for yourself. And I believe that when you get to know him for yourself, you're going to have questions. And this show is really, really brave enough to ask those questions when nobody else really has in years. All my life, I've been in church since I was 9. I've been affiliated in some ways with a religious organization, mostly the Baptist church, but you know, as I've moved around the country, military, and then just on my own, I have fellowshipped at different churches and different religious titles, I guess you could say, because to me, I believe in one God, and I think we all have that same God being the head, even though there are many other gods other than that one. I think that the head is that one, and no matter what church I'm at, whether it's the Kingdom Hall, the Baptist church, the Methodist church, Catholic church, at, you know, temple or worshiping with Muslims, no matter what, there is still just that one head. And so I think that asking questions is important, no matter what religion you follow, because I think that the more that you know and the more that you look at other religions, aside from just that core one that you may have been raised in or brought up to believe, if you look outside of that into other religions, there are a lot of similarities as well as a lot of differences, and it's going to make you ask questions when you look at your reality and the society that you live in. You're going to have questions. If you look at the history of this country, especially for me as an African American, and a dark-skinned one at that, beautiful melanin, yes, you're going to have questions. And this show is asking those questions. So I applaud Oprah, and I applaud the cast and crew and the creator, Craig, for being brave enough to ask the questions that nobody wants to answer. Or probably can't even answer, to tell you the truth. I've yet to meet anybody who can answer. And so, I forgot my train of thought. So I will get off on something in a minute and lose where I was. And my braids is turned up instead of down, but I guess they TT too. But anyway, so what else happened in this episode? Aside from the fact that Isabel, who is portrayed by an actress whose name I think is Anna Diop. Never seen her in anything before this. And she's not a bad actress. Like I said, I just dislike the character because I can't stand a woman worried about the X or the next. Worry about you. Keep things straight with you. So, Carissa's upset about Jacob and Alexa. Jacob just messy as hell. Lady May. There we go. Have not talked about the First Lady. Let us talk about Mother May. She goes to a tasting in Carissa and Jacob's quarters. And I'm assuming that this tasting is for her upcoming banquet, where she gives out her scholarship. And Carissa's coordinating that and handling the food, and the chef that they're interested in using is a personal friend of her and Jacob's. And Lady May comes in criticizing straight off the top, and I'm just like, why is Lady May so mean to everyone? She seems so hateful to everybody but Zora and Sophia, and Bishop, and she'll get Bishop together in a minute. Don't get it twisted. But normally when she getting Bishop together, she's right. Except for she has something with Gigi, and they're going to always disagree on their daughter in any conversation. But other than that, Bishop be messy sometimes too, and Lady May gets them together. But everyone else, she's just so mean to. And Carissa is not an exception, even though she was riding her bandwagon at the dinner table in episode 1. And so, while Lady May is talking about the banquet and talking about the food and, you know, there's such small portions, your salmon is not regular size, I only got 3 nuts on my salad, what is he practicing, miniature chef, and blah blah blah, yada yada yada. Meanwhile, messy Carissa, being true to the name that I have given her, is only talking about Grace. Grace this and Grace that, and what does Bishop think about this, and now that Grace is back. And for a mother who does not seem to have her daughter's back at all, she did shut down messy Carissa and say, you know what, your strength is best exercised in silence. Which pretty much means shut up. I don't want to hear no more about it. We can't even talk about fish. So that, I don't understand. Because it's like you defend her to other people, but you come off like you can't stand her to her face. I don't know. So that's Lady May. So, oh, and the baptism, since that's the name of it. See, I get going and I forget. I'm 36 minutes in and I ain't even told you about the show. If y'all endured, I appreciate it. The baptism. Bishop, as I said, we didn't know how much time passed between season 1, episode 1, and season 1, episode 2. But Gigi is taking a position at the church as associate pastor, and she's staying on. So Bishop's giving her a tour of the church and introducing her to people and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And he, Alexa's getting her all straight with her church phone and boom, boom, boom. And she told her that she only set up one appointment for her with Mrs. Wilcox. And Bishop says, oh yeah, Bishop's round table. To which Gigi asks, what's the Bishop's round table? And Alexa says, it's members who have given, I think it's 10 grand more above their annual tithes. And so she says, yeah, round table is in big round number. And Bishop's like, oh, it's nothing wrong with people who want to give above and beyond. And I'm wondering if this is the thing that they call love offerings. And we'll find out about them love offerings a little bit later. But, so I'm wondering if that is that. And then he takes her to her office and he introduces her to her secretary, Darlene. Now, just a couple of seconds ago when Bishop and Gigi were talking to Alexa about her schedule and giving her her phone and everything and getting her all set, Jacob walks by and says, you know, hey everybody, welcome, I see you getting the tour, blah blah blah. Hey Alexa, when you get a minute, can you swing by my office because I need to reset my password. Now Bishop looking back and forth, and I'm holding these combs because I braided my hair and they're here, and I'm a busybody and I talk with my hands, so there you go. Bishop is looking back and forth between Alexa and Jacob, the way Sophia was looking back and forth between Gigi and Noah. Like, something is going on here. But he didn't say nothing, and Jacob went on about his business. I don't know where Alexa went. Bishop and Gigi continue on to Gigi's office. So we get to Pastor Grace Greenleaf's office, and outside of her door, of course, is her secretary, because that's where her secretary would be, outside of her door, and it's Miss Darlene. Miss Darlene's an older lady, you know, you'll find out later she's been with the church for a while. And Bishop greets Miss Darlene in a way that automatically had me like, is Bishop cheating on First Lady May? And in the same way that first Sophia looked back and forth between Noah and Grace, and then Bishop just looked back and forth between Alexa and Jacob, Gigi is now looking back and forth between Darlene and Bishop. Something ain't right there. So we're going to have to find out what that is. But Let me speed up because this is already 39 minutes and I still got a lot to tell you. I get off on a tangent, y'all. Forgive me. When Grace gets to her office, she checks her voicemails because she sees it. She's blinking. She has messages. One of them is from some telemarketers or something. And the other is from David Nelson. Now, if you recall back to episode 1, David Nelson is the police officer who killed the unarmed young man, Kenny Collins. And so she goes to Bishop's office. And when she comes to Bishop's office, her mother, Lady May, is in the office. And she's like, I'll come back. Because there's some bitter blood between Lady May and Gigi. And he's like, no, come on in. What's going on? And she says, I thought you said you never had any contact with David Nelson. And he says, I didn't. And he says, well, he's been calling here. And if you listen to the message from David Nelson, he says he's been trying to get in touch with Bishop for over a month to no avail. And so Bishop says, well, my people probably didn't think that was something that I should be associated with and kept it from me. And that's another thing I don't like, is when you have all of those, advanced defenses as a pastor to the point where your own congregation, your own church members, the sheep from the flock that you were supposed to lead can't get in touch with you. I don't like that. And that is what this came down to. So she asked him, what do you want me to do? And he said, nothing, just, leave it alone. And then he said, how did it go with Miss Wilcoxon? And she said, oh, she's coming in tomorrow for you to baptize her baby, her grandbaby. And he says, well, you can go ahead and do that. And she was like, oh, no, she'd rather you do it. And Lady May chimes up, just baptize the baby. It's like, why? Because she's a member of Bishop's Roundtable? Said, no, because that's your job, and that's a job that you asked your father for and that he gave you. And so she has a problem with that, and you can tell from her tone of voice and how she snaps that she has a problem with that. Well, while Gigi had been meeting with Miss Wilcoxon, we find out Miss Wilcoxon just as messy as a lot of other people on this show, because she got her grandbaby Erica, and she's trying to get her baptized without the parents' knowledge. And unless grandma has custody of this baby, that's not cool. I don't even know a church that would do that. I hope I ain't never been in a church that would do that, but you just never know. But she says the father is not a part of this family and her mother is on vacation and I want her baptized today. Is that a problem? And Grace asks her, does your daughter even know that you're baptizing her baby? Now, I personally think that it's up to the parents how they want to raise their children in a religious capacity. It's up to the parents, not the grandparents, unless they are the primary caretakers, which in this case, I don't think Miss Wilcoxon is. And I also think that you should not be baptizing anyone's child into a faith if it's not something that they agree with and if it's not something that's going to be carried out in their household. And I think Miss Wilcoxon was all out of order, but because she owned a Bishop's Roundtable, they let her do what she want to do. So money talks everywhere. Church is no exception. Gigi goes and visits David Nelson. Gigi visits David Nelson and tries to get his story and find out what happened. And he was thanking her for getting back to him because nobody had. And then they just kind of had a nice rapport. Nothing, ain't nothing jumping off. Ain't no romantic sizzling or nothing like that. They just had a nice rapport between the pastor of the church, his church that he had been going to. And he made a comment that stuck with me. He said, these are the same people now who are spitting on me and calling me a murderer that were baking me sweet potato pies. And as I told you in my first video on this subject, I follow Lynette and Stanley in their reviews. And she posed a question. Said, who is baking sweet potato pies? Your job? And of course the answer is your church, and everybody who goes to church already knows that. It's like, so these are the same church folk now that don't want anything to do with me, that have pretty much thrown me to the wolves, that before this happened were baking me baked goods, And I will say that is something that is something that will wear on you. If you are a part of a church and they turn on you, especially in a situation like this, where I don't believe that it was racially motivated that David Nelson killed Kenny Collins. We don't actually know the details, and we haven't gotten them in episode 2. But a black man killing another black man is very seldom racially motivated unless one of them has an identity crisis. But he just thinks that someone from the church comes and speaks with him. And now, after meeting with him and talking about that, she passes on the file of Danielle and asks, is it possible to reopen a case, knowing that the young lady recanted, if you can prove that the first statement is true. And as a police officer, he's like, I don't know, because I'm not a lawyer, but hey, my daddy said, let's try it. So why not try it? And she also speaks with Noah about the case as well. And Gigi asks Noah, is he point man on things that go down in the church or complaints that are made against the church? And he really pretty much basically lets her know that he's not, unless the incident actually happens on church ground, and it's usually something that somebody gets injured, slip and fall, somebody's breaking in or something like that. It's nothing serious or to the magnitude of what she's discussing. And she asks him why, and at this point Gigi's not really ready to let Noah in on what she's doing and why she's back. So she just says, oh, I'm just getting my bearings, being here and trying to find out who's in charge of what and how things are run here in the 20 years that I've been gone, which is a good cover. At the end of the episode, though, she does sit down with him and tells him why she left. And we'll end with that. I probably missed a whole bunch of stuff, and if I did, I'm sorry, but you can watch it. You can watch your own app, download it, you can watch it for yourself. I'm just trying to encourage you because I think it's a great show, and I think it's a great conversation piece. So it's entertaining, and it's educational. And it's cathartic, which is always the most important thing for me. It is cathartic. If you got some stuff to work out, you can work it out with the Greenleafs. So, signing off from T's Corner, and I'll be back in a couple shakes with episode 3. I don't think I'm wearing glasses. I'm hot already.